So, the girls are back at school this morning after a 2-week break, which is why I'm surrounded by chaos and I haven't tidied up yet. This is the first chance I've had to do a blog post and a wedding walkthrough, and I've been looking forward to sharing the wedding of Eloise and Sam at Mitton Hall in Mitton, near Clitheroe. Running up to this wedding, I had been preoccupied with the idea of not shooting this wedding in the same way I have done previously at this venue. I really love to travel all over the country photographing different wedding venues because it keeps you on your toes, it keeps you thinking and being creative. And when you photograph the same venue quite a number of times, it's too easy to get into routines with that venue because you know what works best. And I absolutely appreciate that couples often look for a photographer that have photographed their venue before because they know the best areas, etc. But from a photographer's point of view, that's quite a challenge to keep the enthusiasm levels and the creativity at their peak when you have a predetermined idea of what you're going to do on the wedding day. When I arrived that morning, I met Michael from Satin Films, who was filming the wedding, and one of the first conversations we had was about that exact topic. Michael had already worked at Mitton Hall a few times already that year, and he said to me that he wanted to do things differently today, which was fantastic because it meant that we both could push each other out of our comfort zones and keep encouraging each other to try things differently. Anyway, let's start with the wedding walkthrough. As I arrived at Mitton Hall, I realised how windy it was and how cold it was, and although it was a beautiful blue sky day, it was absolutely freezing. So to capture those elements, I decided to do a long shutter speed shot of the front of the hotel to try and illustrate the how windy it was by getting the trees moving here, which is something I've never tried at any venue, never mind Mitton Hall. So I just placed the camera on the floor, kept the camera open for about 2 seconds, which blurred all the trees, just giving you an idea of how windy it was that morning. In the first few hours of when I photograph a wedding, it's mainly the morning preparations, hair and makeup and things like that. And it's the best time to do your experimenting because you've got a lot of time, things happen quite slowly and you don't have to rush shots. So I spent all the morning playing around with using the light in Mitton Hall in ways that I'd maybe not thought of before. So I was using candlelight. So here on the left you can see I was using the darkness of the room and the makeup artist's light to create this more abstract style picture. I think it works really well with Eloise's eyes closed, and just especially in black and white you accentuate the flick on Eloise's eyelashes there. I'm always quite conscious not to photograph too many things that I think just look cool, basically. I'm always trying to capture emotion and moments because for me that's the priority, and these kind of more stylized shots are a luxury. So this is the girls all in their dressing gowns, and I actually used the makeup artist's light, which you can see reflected in the glass there, to light the girls so that they could sit on this bench in front of the window. If I hadn't have done that, the background would have been really, really bright. It's quite bright already, but it would have lost all the details in these trees, which is what I normally would have done, but I just played around with the makeup artist light, to be honest, on this one. These two pictures show an interesting contrast. They show the same moment from different angles. So first of all, I shot through, it was like a copper vase with holes in it, and this created this sun flare effect, and it was just sat on the table there, and I'm shooting into the light. The light that you see here is from the hairdresser's light that she brought. Hairdressers and makeup artists tend to bring their own lights now. And then in contrast to that, I moved around to the back of the hairdresser and Eloise and just used the hairdresser's light, which is what you see there, and exposed, so the ambient light of the room was a lot darker, and it just creates a totally different feel. We now skip forward to when Eloise is getting her dress on. Her mum's helping her into her dress. The light in this room is really, really difficult. You've got bright orange bulbs and quite strong window light from the front, so it's quite hard to balance the shot. I love the challenge of trying to get this putting your shoes on picture because I tend to just put the camera on the floor and just use my guesswork and experience really to try and hit the focus and compose the image without being able to see the image. It didn't go very well the first few times, but I'm pretty much in control of what's going on there now. So now Eloise's flowers arrived, and this shot sums up my approach, I think, in that I could ask Eloise to hold the bouquet towards the window, etc., and get her to pose for that picture, but I much prefer just to wait for the moment to happen naturally and photograph the scene organically. So I don't take up Eloise's time in the morning, and I get a shot that feels more natural and that I'm happier with. And it's just about me standing in the right place, basically. If you notice, the light is coming from kind of a diagonal here, 45 degrees, so I've placed myself just off from the window here. It's a very dark room, so the background goes dark, but I highlight the bouquet in a way that gives it depth and texture, which is what I'm looking for. Okay, I love this shot here when Eloise's mum has just finished helping Eloise into her dress, and there's this moment here where they just kind of hold hands for a moment. That's really touching. This shot here on the right is not posed at all. This is just Eloise waiting in the room. Again, I've positioned myself so that the light falls on Eloise slightly from the side to create depth in the picture, and it's a nice flattering light. So now Eloise's bridesmaids come back into the room, and we've got the big reveal, which is always the absolute peak of the morning preparations in terms of emotion. And we've switched from having all the time in the world in the preparations to you're in full-on wedding photography mode now, where you have split seconds to capture what is going on and capture the emotion in the bridesmaids here. I absolutely adore this shot. This is a great example of how you can use yourself and your position to manipulate the available light. So the available light is the light that is coming through the window, and that is the light that existed in that room. But by positioning myself between the hairdresser here on the left and Eloise's mum on the right, what is happening is us three are blocking out sections of the light coming through the window, and just by leaning to the right a little bit, I allowed the light to come through and hit Eloise's eyes primarily, creating this super soft, beautiful light that falls off, so the background becomes darker and the focus is really drawn to this moment and the expression on Eloise's face there. You can see the contrast in these two shots really when we're blocking the light and it's much softer compared to when Eloise is just stood on her own. This is not a pose shot, again she's just waiting for her dad to come into the room, but she's got the full window light here. So now her dad comes into the room, and while we're waiting I just take the opportunity to get some detail on the back of Eloise's dress. Again, I'm not making a pose for that, she's just in the right place. I just move around to the side to get the detail on this amazing dress. Okay, so that's the morning preparation done with the girls, and I moved downstairs to spend a bit of time with Sam. So this picture on the left here of Sam on his own, I had pre-planned this picture in the morning. There's a little covered doorway at Mitton Hall which lets light in from the front because there's no door on it, and there's a window here creating kind of a more interesting light. It was, however, snowing quite heavily at this point, and I'd not anticipated the snow blowing in from the left here, but when I saw it I just had to jump on that moment. So I just asked Sam to just look out to the snow, and that's the shot that we got. Sometimes in the heat of the moment, like when Eloise is walking down the aisle, there's not always time to fully take in the scene that's in front of you. There's too many things to consider. I'm thinking about exposures and composition and my position and what's going on around me. And it wasn't until I downloaded the pictures that could fully take in this scene, and it's another one of my favourite shots from the day, in that Eloise and her dad have walked down the aisle together, and then this moment when Eloise and Sam come together and their eyes are totally locked onto each other, and I just found this utterly heartbreaking that Dad clearly doesn't want to let go, and it's almost like a metaphor for their relationship and I just imagine what's going through Eloise's dad's mind at this point. Then some happy moments at the ceremony. Some bridesmaids crying. I couldn't resist not taking this picture just because of the stories that are going on within it. You've got you've got Sam's mum and dad holding on to each other, trying to hold it together. The young boy on the left, absolutely bored out of his mind, and the young family in the middle desperately trying to keep the little boy quiet. I thought it was quite hilarious. So straight after the ceremony, Sam and Eloise came out of the front of Mitton Hall so their guests could throw confetti, and the wind had really picked up by that point, but the sun has also come out. So we've got this really fantastic combination of beautiful like sun flares and light, but the wind was so strong that it just made everybody laugh. I couldn't resist putting this shot in, the confetti blur out, almost looks like a Polaroid picture gone wrong. It's not the greatest shot in the world, but I just thought that was really funny. So then after the confetti shot, I took Sam and Eloise off for their portraits. This shot on the left here, this is the shot I had in my mind because I almost thought it looked like a Spanish villa or something. And this was literally one of 3 shots we managed to get because it was so cold and so windy that Eloise just was never going to look relaxed. And I wasn't going to get what I needed. So I abandoned that idea and moved to the back of the hotel, which was much calmer, much warmer. And you can see here the difference, the picture on the right. As a part of this idea of not doing shots I've done before in Mitton Hall, I've always looked at this, I don't even know what you call it really, it's like a trellised area where there's a few tables, people just hang around in there to smoke usually. And I've always thought it had potential but never really could make it work. But because the sun was so harsh and it was early on in the year, it created this effect where the sun was just cutting through the lattice work above and created this really unusual effect. So I just thought I would go for it. If it didn't work, it didn't work. And I actually ended up loving these pictures. Totally not like anything I've ever done before, but something I will really try again in the future. Then we moved down into the lower gardens at Mitton Hall to try and get out of the wind a little bit more. The light was super soft but still warm and sunny down there, which was just so perfect for Eloise's dress. It just picks out all the contours and the folds in the material. Absolutely perfect. Why would you not take that picture? This is Holly. Eloise and Sam were hanging around in the bar waiting to be introduced to their guests, and I was stood at the other side of them initially, and I just saw how the sun was beaming in through the bar and how dark the bar was, yet it had some really cool lighting and reflections happening. So I just ran around the other side of them and just started snapping away really, and got these amazing shots which I think are quite Hollywood looking. I started using the lights and things in the foreground just to make it a bit more interesting because there's a lot going on. This must have lasted about 30 seconds, this whole photo shoot. Some of the speeches. Sam and the boys having a sneaky cigar before the evening kicks off. So at Mitton Hall there's a classic shot that a lot of people want, and that is with the big chandelier in the old part of the hall. I've always found it quite difficult to approach this shot with my shooting style in mind because it's easy to do with flash guns and things like that, which is what I'm trying to avoid on the wedding day. So I wanted to challenge myself at Sam and Eloise's wedding to pull off this chandelier shot using my own techniques, my own approach. This shot here is lit purely with the chandelier light, which actually turns out to be really beautiful. And this shot here, I actually shot from the other side of the room with a big zoom lens shooting through the chandelier, which also worked quite well. And at the end of this little photo shoot, I just skipped to the other side of them to see what the light would look like. And it turns out there's a little highlight on Eloise here, which looked fantastic. And from there on in, it was dancing and partying. And that was that. So thank you for watching this wedding walkthrough. If you don't follow me on Instagram already, it's mark_Tattersall. I'll be posting more pictures from this wedding on there, and I'll see you soon.